didn't get a link. I had to go back because I had the meeting ID and number, but I can't seem to get in anyway, even though I think I'm registered. So I don't know whether I should talk to.
Well, you're on right now, right?
Yeah, because I'm smartly copied down your meeting ID and number and everything.
Oh, okay. Right now I'm texting you a link that goes to all the classes, and it's very easy to sign in from there.
Okay, and that would be a link I could use
for all the classes.
Could you do me a favor and email it to me at some point? I'll send you I'll remind you.
Okay. I am so sorry. I wish this person had just contacted me a little earlier.
Well, they changed things a little bit, and I think that's what's making it a little confusing.
Suzanne, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
It's Leah Schultz. It was in that list of, you click on Lisa Unsell where she tells you what's going on on Sunday, and the link is in that place.
Yeah, there's a thing that says Zoom links for Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't think I got that.
Well,
I didn't get that
Suzanne,
one.
I just sent it to you.
Thank you. And if you could send it to me next week, well, I'll contact the office this week because I don't want to take too much time.
Cantor?
Yes.
I would like to compliment you on your Haftorah reading yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
It was very beautiful.
Thank you so much. It was fun doing it. Okay, let's get started. And I feel really bad. There's somebody who can't get in, but I'll miss working with the rest of you if I do that right now. So the first thing I'd like to do is if we can go to Siddur Sim Shalom.
What page?
Okay. Siddur Sim Shalom, and we're going to start on page 100.
Diane, can you tell me who it is that can't get in, and let me see if I can help them?
Oh, okay.
I'll email them.
Their phone number is 203-833.
Yeah.
0033.
Okay, let me see if I can help them.
Thank you.
Well, that's an old Connecticut. Okay, so I'm sorry, what page?
So we're going to be on page 149 in Siddur Sim Shalom, okay?
And what about Lev Shalom?
I'm so sorry. I meant Lev Shalem.
You meant Lev Shalom, yeah.
Siddur Lev Shalem. Can you see my desktop right now?
Yes.
We see if it's the list of links, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's what's important is that you can see the desktop. Here we go. B'nai Mitzvah.
A lovely picture of pumpkins.
That's pretty.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. Siddur Lev Shalem.
Well, I have the book. I just needed the page number.
Oh, yes, 149. Does everyone have the book? Did everybody get a copy of the Siddur?
Well, Leah Schultz has it.
Okay.
And Suzanne has it. I got it over the summer.
Okay, I wish it was easier to get to the pages we needed. I might just scan every page individually for next time. It's really tiresome.
Diane, considering the things that are going on, you're very calm. I'm impressed.
Barhu. Now, can somebody tell me, maybe somebody who took the class this summer, remind us what Barhu means? What does Barhu mean?
Bless us?
blessed.
Blessed.
So in the morning, at the first prayer that's like kind of the official part of the service is Baruch Hu. Okay, here we go. This is it. I'm gonna have to reduce this. Okay, here we go. It's right here. Do you see it? It looks so little right here. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Baruch Hu. Okay, I'm going to sing a phrase at a time, and then I'd like you to all echo me, okay?
Okay.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach
Leolam Vaed. Good. I'm going to do it one more time. It's just like choir rehearsal, right? Learning these prayers. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Good. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Leolam Vaed.
Leolam Vaed.
Okay, and then this leads right into the sort of first blessing that we do. Let's see. Let's just miss it. Yeah. This goes right into what we call the Yotzer prayer. Yotzer means creation. So this goes. So if we continue on 150, next time I'm just going to scan each page separately. Okay, so here, right after the Baruch Hu, on the top of 150, is what we call the Yotzer prayer. And Yotzer, we said, means like form or create. So please echo me. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Yotzer or.
Yotzer or.
Uvorei choshech.
Uvorei choshech.
Osei shalom.
Osei shalom.
Uvorei et hakol.
Uvorei et hakol.
Let me ask you a question. Does everyone have a copy of the prayers? Do I need to use this screen here?
I have a copy.
And I have a
I
copy.
have a copy.
Can I turn the screen off? I'd much rather see you than the screen.
Yes.
It's much easier using it if you have the book, in the book, if you have the book.
Yes, it is. Okay, I thank you. As long as everyone has a copy of the Siddur, then I'm just going to do it from the Siddur. Okay. And people can also download their own copy. But maybe I'll make a little packet that just has the prayers that we need for now, and I'll send that to you, and it'll be easier to work with. So in the Yotzer prayer, Baruch atah Adonai, who could translate Baruch atah Adonai? Can someone translate
Blessed
for us?
art thou, God.
Good. Well, that's very elegant English. Blessed art thou, or blessed are you. God, and Eloheinu. What does Eloheinu mean?
Our God,
Right, right, our God. Melech haolam.
King of the
King of the
world.
universe.
Right, king of the world or king of the universe. Yotzer, or what
Who
does
made
Yotzer means? What does Yotzer mean?
Forms
light.
light.
Right, formed,
Or is light.
created, made, all of those are good. Formed light, very good. Uvorei choshech. Vorei is a synonym of Yotzer.
It
So
made
creates.
darkness.
Creates darkness.
and created darkness. A lot of good Hebrew readers here. Oseh is also kind of a synonym of Yotzer and Borei. So what is Oseh?
Made, did,
Made shalom, right?
peace,
Made peace. Uvorei et hakol.
and made everything.
And made everything good.
What page are we on?
Those people who devoted time this summer to the prayer book Hebrew, I hope it just felt really familiar to you. Okay, let's try. So Anne, we're on page 150. Let's try it again. I'll sing it and you sing it after me. Baruch atah Adonai. Eloheinu melech haolam.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Yotzer or uvorei choshech.
Yotzer or uvorei choshech.
Osei shalom.
Shalom.
Uvorei et hakol.
Uvorei et
Good. Okay, can we all turn to the bottom of page 153, the last two lines? This is the next prayer. It's actually part of the same prayer. Yotzer is the beginning of this prayer, and Or Chadash, which we're about to sing, is the end of the prayer. And what is that entire prayer called? The one that begins with Yotzer Or and ends with Or Chadash. Does anybody remember what this prayer is called? It's, yes, does anybody remember?
No.
Yotzer. It's just called Yotzer, right?
Oh, Yotzer, okay.
So a lot of times in the prayer book, things are just called by whatever the first few words of the prayer are, right? So Shema v'Ahavta is called Shema, right? Vishamru is called Vishamru. Yotzer, the main part of the service after, the main part of the prayer after the Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, which is our prayer formula, right? Right after that is the word Yotzer, so it's called Yotzer. So this whole prayer, which goes all the way from 150 to 153, is called.
Could you send something like something out with all of this in order? I mean, I know I should know it, but I don't. So it'd be
What are you
helpful if I
asking?
had an email or something with the order of the stuff you're giving us right
Oh,
now.
I did do a mailing with that attachment. I'll make sure you get it.
Thank you.
Have an outline sent out, but
That would be great.
Me
yeah.
too.
In
I
fact, I
apologize.
think I might have asked for that to be posted. Maybe I didn't, and I should do that as well. But I'll make sure that I send out the outline again. Okay. So at the bottom of page 153, this is the one that goes, Or chadash al Zion Tair. Okay, I'll sing a phrase at a time and you do it after me. Or
And I'm sorry, which line is it?
Is it
What-
the very bottom?
two
The
lines.
very bottom one?
The last two lines on 150.
Okay. Okay, see it.
Or chadash al Zion.
Or Al
Out Zion Tair. Mehera leoro. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Yotzer hameorot.
Yotzer hamerot.
Let's just do the last word. Hameorot. Okay, what is the root inside of hameorot? It's one of our core words that we have over and over.
Or.
Or, right. Hameorot are the lights, and or is the root of that word. Okay, let's do it one more time, and I'm going to go faster this time. Or hadash al Zion.
Or hadash al Zion.
Al Zion Tair.
Al Zion Tair.
Veniske Hulanu. Meira Leoro.
What do you?
Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Yotzer hameorot.
Yotzer hameorot.
Good. Okay, I'll send out a prayer packet this week so that you don't have to, if for those of you who don't have the Siddur, you should get one sometime soon. But so that you have something.
Well, will you send anything out? Could you send it out email? Because it's easier to print from email than from text.
Sure. Okay.
Wait a minute. There's a lot of things that are in bold between 150 and 153. Surely we need to know
Yes, but we're not,
the
we're
lines.
going to start. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with what are considered like the core prayers for the B'nai Mitzvah program. And then, depending on our progress, we'll go back and do all of the, we're kind of emphasizing what would be considered congregational sections of the service. And then we'll give maybe solos to people to do some of the other sections individually or in maybe duets or something like that. But for the next few weeks, we're just going to do the parts that everybody does together.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. On page 154, towards the bottom of the page, there's a red triangle pointing at the word Vahavienu. It's also available on the English side of the page in transliteration. This is a prayer about God bringing the Jewish people back from the four corners of the earth to Eretz Yisrael. Okay. And it's sung to the melody of Hatikva, right? The Israeli national anthem. That's a custom to sing into that melody. We don't have to, but it's a custom that's widely observed. Okay, I'll do, I don't know, a phrase at a time, a line at a time. Vahavi Leshalom Me'aran Fota'aret. Try singing it with me. Don't worry about making mistakes. Make mistakes, it's okay. Let's try it together. Vahavienu Leshalom Me'aran Fota'aret. My turn now. V'tol Leinu Omemiyut Omemiyut heart send you. Let's all sing the second line together.
Oh,
Okay, next line. Together. Let me sing the next line. Ovanu v'charta mikolam v'lashon. Ovanu v'charta mikolam v'lashon. Okay, if you're having trouble, feel free to use the transliteration a few times until you're more comfortable and then switch back to the Hebrew. Okay, we're on the 5th line. I'll sing it first. V'keirav tanu l'shimcha hagato. Sing that with me. V'keirav tanu l'shimcha hagato. Stella, Stella, Bemet. Together. Stella, Stella, Bemet. Let's take it from the beginning all together. All right, now this is what I'd like to suggest. If I sing a little on the loud side and you sing a little bit on the quiet side, I think that you'll be able to hear me and be able to sing out loud. Okay, so let's just, as an experiment, you'll sing a little bit quietly and I'll sing a little bit loudly and try to sing it with me, okay? How did that go so far?
Better.
Better. Anne, did you have a question?
I just wanted to emphasize, because I only noticed it, that there's a couple of lines where you repeat a word, komamut.
Oh, thank you. Why don't we go
and
over
Selah.
those? Thank you very much. The second line, we repeat the word komemiyut. Komemiyut. And then Yvonne.
Diane, where are you in the transliteration?
Oh, in the transliteration, second line, second word,
Second line, the word is Gadolar, I think.
Komamiyut.
Komemiyut is repeated. Second line of Vahavienu. Second line of Vahavienu. Second word is repeated. Komemiyut. Okay, and then on the third line from the end, the
And this is based
word
also on
is
the
Selah.
transliteration. Third from the bottom.
Selah. Suzanne, excuse me for just a minute.
Sorry.
Third line from the end. Second word from the end, Selah, Selah. And although we haven't done it yet, second line from the end, third word, Ul Yachedcha is done twice. So there's 3 words, right? There's Komemiyut, there's Selah, Selah. Ul Yachedcha, right? It's those 3 words that are done twice. I'm really glad that Anne, was it you that brought it up? Thank you. Okay, let's try working on those last 2 lines. So please repeat after me. Lehodot lecha ul yachedcha. Lehodot lecha ul yachedcha. And now me again. Ul yachedcha be'ahava. Again. Ul yachedcha be'ahava. Okay, and now the last line. Baruch atah Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai. Habocher be'amo Yisrael. Ahava. Habocher be'amo Yisrael. Okay, now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share the recording that Cantor Finkelstein made of this prayer. I think you should probably put yourselves on mute, and then I'd like you to sing along with the Cantor's recording. Okay, let's try that. I realize that this is a little complicated. Let me try again. Okay, I need to say share computer sounds. Both of those. Now share.
והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Were you able to hear that? Oh, it's still playing. Let me turn it off. Okay, that's better. So there was one little mistake with the Hebrew. Did you notice it? I won't point it out if you didn't notice it.
Well, the phrasing was different.
It was a tiny bit different. We're not going to worry about that. But I still think you can use it for practicing. Now, the only thing, there's one word. Ul yachedcha. Okay, it's ul yachedcha. Okay. All right. We're going to continue by reviewing Shema ve'ahavta. Did people get a chance to practice this a little bit? Okay. Oh, I'm happy to hear it. And you can unmute if you'd like to do it with me.
Where are we?
We are on page 155, and there is a transliteration on the English side of the page for anyone who might need a transliteration.
What's it called?
Shema ve'ahavta, right? Shema. And we only cover our eyes for the first line. I'm not going to ask you to cover them at all right now because we're learning, right? We're not leading services right now. But in services, you only cover your eyes for the Shema line. And when we have this line Shema in other parts of the service, like the Torah service or in the Kedusha, you don't cover your eyes. It's only this time when we do Shema that we cover our eyes, not in other parts of the service. Okay, here we go. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. I think you need to do it a little quieter so that I can lead it, okay? I'm happy to have you do it out loud, but I want everyone to hear me leading it. So turn it to, just sing a tiny bit quieter, and I'll try to sing a tiny bit louder. There is a way of kind of balancing the sound on Zoom, but it's complicated. So I think we can all sing together if you don't mind singing a bit quieter. Okay, so let's just start with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha ub'chol nafshecha ub'chol me'acha Vehayu hadvarim ha'elu asher anochi mitzavecha hayom halevecha eshinata bevanecha vedibarta ba Beshiftecha, Etecha, Uvlechtecha, Derech, Uvishoktecha, Uvkumecha, Ukshartam Leot, Tadecha, Vehayu Litov, Beinecha, Uchtavcha, Amezuzah, Rekecha, Uzcharecha. Was that too weird doing it that way?
No.
Okay.
No. Good.
You can tell me privately later on if you if it wasn't okay.
No, it's very helpful.
Good. I mean, I like being able to hear what you're doing, even if it's a little weird. So, okay. The next thing we talked about working on was the votes and giverot. Those are the first two blessings of the Amidah, the standing prayer. And in Hebrew, you can find this on page 159. And if you need a transliteration, in the Siddur on page 466, there's a transliteration. Can you see that?
466?
466. There's a transliteration. Now, this is what I'd like to suggest. For people who would like to start by using a transliteration, you can do this for, a few weeks, and then please switch to the Hebrew once you're more comfortable with the prayer. Right? Because if you're using the recording and you already know it pretty well, you could probably do it from the Hebrew. But for just starting out, if your Hebrew is on the shaky side, you can start here and then switch to the Hebrew. Page 466. Okay. Did people get to practice this a bit? Did anybody have a chance? It's okay. We'll practice it right now. But let's try singing it straight through, okay? And I think we talked about this last week, and you probably know this anyway, but this is one of the ones where we bow. So it's Baruch is the knees, Atah is the waist, and Adonai is back up. So it's knees, waist. Baruch atah Adonai. We're going to start over again. Okay, here we go. Baruch atah
Adonai,
Eloheinu, Eloheinu. All right, people have to sing quieter. Okay, just sing a tiny bit quieter, so that
Are we gonna do the one with the women or the other one?
we're doing it. We're doing the one that says with patriarchs and matriarchs. That's it, with the imahot. Here we go again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagdashot, Hagibor, Hanoah, El Elyon, Gomer Hasadim Tovim, V'Komnei Hakol, V'Zocher Yaakov, Umei Goel Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Ufoked U'Moshe U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah. Okay, let's stop here. And I just want to point out some structural stuff that might be helpful to people who are first learning. And I know some of you know it already for many years. But for those of you who don't, I'm going to just point out a few things about the structure of the melody. So if you take a look at the third line of the prayer, first we're going to name all of the fathers, all of the avots. So that's Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And then the melody, the identical tune starts all over again when we do the imahot, the mothers. So the fathers and the mothers are listed separately, but with the same melody. So it's, don't sing with me this time. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov. And then the mothers are exactly the same. Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah. Can we try that together? Just the fathers and the mothers. So we're starting on line 3. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Does anybody feel really confident with those two phrases and would like to demonstrate for the class? Would anybody be willing to do that? Me. Oh, good. Thank you. Let's hear it.
Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah.
Oh, thank you. I loved hearing a choir. Now, I just want to mention to people, as we rehearse together for the next X number of months, we will smooth out and end up with the exact same melody. But there are little variations depending on which service you daven with, right? So we will become more in sync with one another as we practice. That was very good. And I loved hearing the choral effects of having you all sing together. Is there anyone else who would like to sing it for us?
Leah will do it.
Okay, Leah, thank you.
Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah.
Nice. Thank you very, very much. It was very, very nice. Okay. And now let's see. Would anybody else like to try? Lori, did you want to try? I thought you wanted to try. No? Okay.
No.
All right.
Not as a soloist, anyway.
All right. Now let's see. There's another part that's a little bit hard, so I just want to go over it. It's kind of, the music's a little bit tricky. The 8th line down. Can you count down from the beginning 8 lines? At the beginning of that line is El Elyon.
Okay.
8 lines down, El Elyon. And we're going to go to Gomel. Gomel. Okay. Right. So it's a little bit chromatic. So listen one time and then we'll do it together again. Gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol. Gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol. Now, those of you who go to the museum minyan or the chapel minyan on a regular basis, in those 2 minyans, we do the melody a little bit differently, but I'm not going to sing it the other way because I don't want to mess you up. Gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol. Good. V'zocher chastei avot. Umevi goel livnei v'neihem. Lema'an shemo be'ahava. Good. Okay. I'm going to jump to the Giverot. That's the second prayer in the Amidah, the Giverot, which on page 160 is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. It's the one that says Ata Gibor. Ata Gibor. And can you find that in the transliteration? Anybody who's using it? Ata Gibor. It'll say second bracha, God saving camp.
It's on 466 in the middle of the page.
Thank you. Okay, now, for the Giverot prayer, there's a line that we do between Shemini Atzeret, which was right the day before Simchat Torah, and it ends on Pesach. And since we're after Pesach for your B'nai Mitzvah, we won't be doing this line, but for the sake of education, we'll practice it with the Mashiv Haruach insertion for the next few weeks, and then we'll drop it. as we get closer to our service. Okay, so we're going to do Atagi Bor. Let me sing it once, and then you'll sing it with me. Atagi Bor Leolam Adonai, Michaye Metim Mata, Rav Leoshia. Okay, please sing it with me this time. Atagi Bor Leolam Adonai, Michaye Metim Mata, Rav Leoshia. Mashiv Haruach Umori Hagashem. Let's sing that again. Mashiv Haruach Umori Hagashem. Okay, I'm going to ask everyone to mute, and then we'll sing because we don't have a lot of time left. But let's just finish this paragraph. And we're on the Mechalkel line. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim. So mech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, micha mocha ba'al gevurot umido melach, melech memit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua, vene'emanata lehachayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hametim. I guess that was a little bit on the low side, huh? Okay, you can unmute. If you want to. All right. Anybody who hasn't contacted me, which is just about everybody except for Leah and Suzanne, please contact me this week because I'd like to make sure that everybody has their own study plan, right? Some assignments that you personally can work on and that I can go over with you. And if you are shy, I can go over them with you privately and not during class. If you're not shy, I would be happy to hear your assignments during class. Okay, so I'm just going to give you my phone number again, and you can text me. Don't call, but text. I think most of you have it anyway, but there it is.
Wait,
Chat. There it is. And let me give you my email address again. So contact me this week so that we can get together and come up with a plan for you, okay? I think there might be one or two people who are taking the class just for learning. Megan, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay, all right. There might be one or two people who are just taking the class to learn the prayers and aren't planning necessarily on doing the service, although I hope they'll change their minds. But even those people, if you'd like to, I'd still be very, very happy to work on an assignment with you, if you'd like to. Anyway, please be in touch because it's hard to do that kind of work in a Zoom class. Anyway, everyone have a great week. Thanks for your hard work. Please keep working on page 159 on the Voting Different Roads, or 466. And I sent a link that has all of the recordings like a week or two ago, but I will ask Lisa to send it out again. Okay? All right. All the best. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye. No, now Rabbi Morgan's coming.
It's the same number. Let's see if there's any.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Jennifer? Jennifer? Oh,
She must not be here yet. But her name is here. Hi. Hi, Leah.
hey, how are you doing?
Well, I'm here. I tried to get on last week and I didn't.
Oh, I had a problem last week too, and I was listening on my phone, which was not satisfactory at all. And
Well-
Jennifer gave me a little tutorial during the week,
Mhm.
so it was very good. Are you just staying here and hoping that Rabbi Morgan will suddenly appear?
Rabbi Morgan will suddenly appear. Hi.
Okay.
Is that
good.
Jennifer?
It is. Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
hey,
not-
Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
He will be on in just a minute. They're gonna just flip flop, and he'll be on in just. He's finishing up his other class.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Nice menorah.
People logged off, but you didn't have to, so y'all did the right thing. Just stay put.
We could have just stayed where we were.
Yeah, he's gonna join this Zoom, so you don't have to go anywhere.
I actually got off and on again. Sandra Ortiz. Does anybody know if there's a special book or a handout that we should have?
We're just in a fog. Lori, Lori.
Hi.
Hi, it's Leah. Did you get any printouts for Rabbi Morgan's class today?
No,
not.
we don't know.
I didn't either. Okay.
How come our names are sometimes on it, sometimes not?
I don't know. It was a second ago, it was there.
Yeah, now it's gone. Now it's back.
Hi, how you can hear us? Can you hear us well? Vallarta family?
Hello.
Have the rest of you all got a handout?
No. Did you? I didn't see anything to download.
Okay, I don't have anything. Hmm.
He has to come from his 9 o'clock class.
Not as if he had to walk down the hall.
You're part of my background. If I move over this way, you're not.
Oh, there, Rabbi?
Everybody here?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have to turn my
Morning.
camera on. There we go. Now
Oh,
I'm
that's
Good morning, Rabbi.
How are you? Oh, somebody's echoing. They must have two items on at the same time or something. Okay, sounds better. Okay, good. So let me people are logging in again. That's good. Is there anything in the chat left over? Images, full cloud. Okay, we don't need that. Good. So I'm going to share screen. How's that sound?
go ahead.
Okay, let's try that out. Today, we're talking about the Shema. Oops, wrong one. I might come back to this a little bit later, but right now I want to go to a different one.
Is there a handout that we should have rented?
Yeah, there's a handout that was probably put in the, whoops. There we go. There was a handout that was put in the website that you can download. Let me see if I can get you that page. Hold on one second. Zoom link downloads. And downloads for adult learning mitzvah. And the link is, okay. So hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat box over here. There. So if you go to that website, you'll get the handout for the class. Okay, now back to.
Oh, now it's gone.
It's gone.
Yes.
Doesn't work. Wait a second.
I only got a few part of it.
Yeah, no, it's there.
I can't see it.
Oh, well, I don't know. All right, I'm going to put it up on my share screen in any case, so you'll have it, okay? Okay, so there we are. So what I'm going to talk about today is the Shema. And when we talk about the Shema in the Jewish circles, it's a little confusing. It could mean just the first line. So the first line, as you can see on this handout here, is from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. And in Hebrew, I'm looking where the little hand is. You can see the little hand. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's the first line. And it means, Shema means listen or hear. Actually means hear. Yisrael is the people of Israel. Yud He Vav He, that's God's name. Eloheinu, so the word Elohim is God, and Eloheinu means our God. Yud He Vav He, that's God's name again. Echad, one. So if we put it all together, it's Hear, O Israel. Yud He Vav He is our God. Yud He Vav He alone, or Yud He Vav He is one, right? That's what it translates to. Now, just a little note here, you'll see that in this printed text, the ayin, this letter ayin here in Shema is large, and this letter daled here in Echad is large. And that's because there are scribal traditions for how scribes are supposed to copy the Torah text on parchment, right? It's hand copied by a scribe, letter for letter. And there are certain weird things in the text that are continued to be copied by scribes that are considered part of the tradition. Some of them are large letters that come up occasionally. Sometimes it's a small letter. They're supposed to make it extra small. Sometimes there's dots that are put over the words or letters. So these kind of unusual little scribal details that they're supposed to copy precisely. And one of those things is when they're copying out this verse in the Torah scroll, they're supposed to make this ayin large and this daled large. And they don't really know why. They just know that that's how it's done. After they started doing that, of course, we then came up with reasons for why they're doing it. So I'll give you two reasons for why it's a large ayin and a large daled. The first reason is that ayin and daled spell a word in Hebrew, and the word is aid, and aid means witness. And the purpose of reciting this one sentence, Hear, O Israel, God is our God, God alone. When we recite that word, we are witnessing to God's oneness. We are professing our faith in a one monotheism, faith in one God. And so as witnesses to God's oneness, that's why it's an ayin, large ayin, and a large daled. A second reason some rabbis say why it's a large ayin and a large daled is that Shema, the ayin is kind of a silent letter. So for those of you who know the Hebrew alphabet, there are a couple of silent letters. One of them is an ayin and the other is an aleph. And so the scribe might have mistakenly thought that this was supposed to be spelled with an aleph. But if he had done that, instead of the word Shema, he would have been spelling the word Shema, which actually is a word, but it doesn't mean hear, or it means perhaps. And you don't want to say, perhaps Israel, God is our God, perhaps God is one. We don't want to say perhaps. You want to be sure you're saying, listen, Israel, God is God and God alone, right? So to make sure that you don't spell it wrong, because that would be catastrophic, they made the ayin large. And similarly, over here on Echad, the Daled and the letter Resh are very similar looking, right? And so the scribe might have thought that the word was supposed to be Acher, right, with a Resh instead of Echad with a Daled. And Acher is a word, but it means other. And so then you would have the expression, listen up, Israel, God is our God, God is somebody else. God is other, God is something else. We don't want to say that. So we want to make sure we say Echad, so we're going to make the Daled extra large. The truth is we don't really know why the ayin and the Daled are large, but they are. And so again, going back to my first statement, Shema, when we say we're going to recite the Shema, we could say just this one sentence. And that became kind of a common thing that you say that, you know, there's a sort of a folk idea that before you die, you're supposed to recite the Shema as the last thing you do. And the idea is that's a profession of God's oneness, you know, as one of the last things you do in this world. So you would
That's
say,
what Akiva did.
yes, but that's only this one sentence, not the whole paragraph. That's what they're referring to. On the other hand, when we talk about reciting the Shema in the prayer liturgy in the worship service, it's not just that one sentence, it's this whole paragraph, and not just this whole paragraph, which is Deuteronomy chapter 6, but also this one from Deuteronomy chapter 11, and this one from the book of Numbers chapter 15. Somehow these three paragraphs got connected together as a prayer unit very early, what I call early in Jewish history. Early in Jewish history means sometime in the late Second Temple period, sometime in the last couple centuries before the Common Era. Somehow these three paragraphs got connected together as a unit. They were considered a liturgical unit. We don't know why. We don't have historians from that time period who told us what was going on, but we know it's a very ancient tradition to connect these three paragraphs. I'll suggest a reason in a moment, but hopefully today, a little bit later. But when we talk about reciting the Shema, we're talking about these three paragraphs. And in a prayer book, they don't come all by themselves. There became this custom in rabbinic tradition that if we're going to read a passage of Torah from scriptures, that we should say a blessing before reading the scriptures and a blessing after reading the scriptures. So that's what we do during the Torah service. And you all, if you're going to participate in the Adult B'nai Mitzvah class, the service in May or June, I forget when it is exactly.
It's in May.
In May. So you'll have an opportunity when you get called up to the Torah, you will say the blessing before reading the Torah, then read a section of the Torah, and then the blessing after the Torah. And that became the paradigm for pretty much most of the time when we read a text from the Bible, that we say a blessing before and a blessing after. So the rabbis created a structure of two blessings before reciting the Shema and one blessing after reading the Shema in the morning service, and two blessings after the Shema in the evening service. Right? Remember, the Shema is recited twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. So next week, we'll talk about the blessings that come before and after the Shema. Right now, I just want to talk about these three paragraphs. Okay. So these three paragraphs get put together at an early point in time. Let's first look at the first paragraph, which is the most important one, in my opinion, and most people's opinion. right? So the first thing that's important about it is we're professing God's uniqueness, God's oneness, our faith in monotheism, that there's only one creator, right? Shema Yisrael, Yud He Vav He is our God, Yud He Vav He alone. Let me also talk about God's name. So God's name is spelled Yud He Vav He. We don't know exactly how it was supposed to be pronounced because in the Torah there's no vowels. And the high priest, it became, at least in Second Temple times, God's name became so holy that only the high priest could pronounce the name. And he would only pronounce it on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year. And he would only pronounce it in the Holy of Holies in the temple, the holiest place for us on the planet, right? So the high priest on the holiest day in the holiest place would pronounce God's name. And all the rest of the time, we should use some other word to substitute for Yud He Vav He. And we shouldn't use God's name in vain and just say his name lightly. So we forgot how to pronounce his name. Instead, usually we say Adonai. The first thing you will notice about Adonai is it's the wrong letters for Yud He Vav He, right? That's not how Yud He Vav He could possibly be pronounced, right? Adonai would require Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud. Adonai, not Yud He Vav He. Completely the wrong letters. We say Adonai, which means my Lord, right? And so instead of using God's name, let's say Frank, I'm trying to be a little iconoclastic here on purpose, because I want to say that we want to use God's name. It's supposed to be God's name. So if God's name was Frank, we would be saying Frank. But instead of saying Frank, we say my Lord, okay? So number one, we don't know how to pronounce it. Now, if you go to modern scholar books or the social studies textbook that's used in 9th grade or 10th grade in Texas, I know this because the kids would come to me and say, what is this? They say the God of the Hebrews was Yahweh, Y-A-H, yeah, Y-A-H-W-E-H, Yahweh. That is a guess by some scholars as to how Yud He Vav He should be pronounced. And perhaps that is how it's supposed to be pronounced, in which case I shouldn't have done it.
How dare you?
How dare I? Well, we don't really know if that's the right way. Now, why would that be the correct pronunciation for Yud He Vav He? Vav isn't a W. And the answer is that some language scholars believe that the Vav was pronounced originally as a W.
Well, even today, it's often an oo.
Ooh, right. Could be ooh or whatever. So the point is,
That's like a W.
yeah. Well, anyway, we don't really know. That is a possible pronunciation, however. I will tell you what is not a possible pronunciation, and that is Yehovah, or Jehovah, as the Jehovah's Witnesses like to say. Right? How do I know that Yehovah is not the correct pronunciation? Because those are the vowels that are put in some prayer books with the consonants Yud He Vav He. But those vowels were put together with those consonants in Jewish prayer books to remind you not to say Yahweh or whatever it is, but rather to say Adonai, because those are the vowels that would be used for Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, if you were saying Adonai, right? So they took the vowels from Adonai and they put them with Yud He Vav He to tell you not to say whatever it's supposed to be, but to say Adonai. Is everybody with me on that?
Mm-hmm.
So Jehovah is definitely not how you pronounce it. Jehovah is definitely wrong. One other thing I want to say about God's name before I go back to the text is we don't know exactly what God's name means, but we do know this. All Hebrew words are based on 3-letter roots. Well, 99% of Hebrew words are based on 3-letter roots. And once you know what the 3 letters of the root are, you can make a guess as to what the basic meaning of the name or word is. So Yud He Vav He is a weird word because they're all consonants that can also be used as vowels. And it's also, but we also know what the root is, He Vav He. And the root, He Vav He, means to be, like in Hamlet, to be or not to be. That is the question. And so God's name is some form of the word to be. So let me suggest two possibilities, or three possibilities. One is God is the existent one, the one who exists, the ultimate existence. It could be a sense of God's eternity, the eternal one, right? The God, one who always exists and will forever exist, the eternal one. And it could also be something like the one who causes all of existence. And any of those ideas certainly fit with Jewish thought. And so I think it's important for us to realize that when we wanted to say, what is the ultimate, no, in the Bible, remember that in the ancient world, names had meanings. And when you were named something, it was supposed to mean something, okay? So like Joseph, right? When Joseph is named by his mother, Rachel, Joseph means additional. And she says, I'm naming you Joseph because maybe God will give me another child, an additional child. So I'm naming you Joseph. The name has a meaning, right? So when we think about God's name has a meaning. And when we think about God as being the only God, thinking of God in terms of existence, the existent one, the source of all existence, the eternally existent one, right? All of those things relate to how we understand God and therefore his name has a meaning that's specific to God. And remember, when he first appears to Moses at the burning bush, and Moses says to him, I'm going to go back to the Israelites and tell them that your God said he's going to get you out of here, and they're not going to believe me, so I have to tell them what your name is. Then they'll believe me. What's your name? Right? What is your name? And God says, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. Again, using that same verb, I will be what I will be. But Ehyeh is from that same verb form of to exist, to be. Okay, so that's that part. So that's part of what we should think of when we think of God's name and when we recite the Shema, right? So when we're saying is, listen, Israel, the existent one, the eternally existent one, the one who's the source of all existence, that's our God. And that eternal one alone, the only one who is God, right? And there's only one of them, right? There's only one source of all existence. Okay, so that's the first sentence. It took a while to get there, but I think that was kind of important to focus on. Now we're going to get to the next sentence, which is very well known in Christian circles because it's repeated 3 times in the Gospels by Jesus. Va'ahavta et yud he vav he. Va'ahavta means you will love. You should love. It's like a commandment to love. Et is just indicates a direct object. It's a word that doesn't translate into English. The direct object is God. So we should love God. Yud he vav. We should love the existent one. Elohecha means your God. See, Eloheinu is our God. And this is Elohecha, which means your God. So this is in singular, second person. This is plural, first person. Right? You should love the Lord your God, love the existent one, your God. V'chol levavcha, levav is your heart. And cha, the ending cha means your. That's why Elohecha means your God. So this means your heart. Now you have to know that in the ancient world, the heart was not necessarily the source of emotion and love. You would think so because it says love, with all your heart. But the heart in the ancient world, they didn't really have a good sense of anatomy back then. And some people thought that your mental faculties actually were kept in your heart. So it could mean with all your emotions, but it could also mean with all your thoughts, all your intellectual capacity. So you
Mind.
should love God with all of that. And then bechol, which means and with all. Nafshecha, that's that ending cha again, your. And nefesh means your soul. So with all your soul. So what's your soul? That's your spiritual being. Or some would say your essence, your beingness, the fact that you're alive with all your livingness. So love God with all your emotions and thoughts, with all your being, uvechol me'odecha, with sometimes considered strength, right? Here it says translated as might, or it could be with all your possessions, with all your physical capabilities, let's say, right? So here's your intellectual, emotional capabilities, with all your spiritual, essential capabilities, and with all your physical capabilities. And then that's all those three senses. You should love God. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ela, and these words, Ela means these, dvarim are words. These words, asher anochi mitzavcha, that I command you. A mitzvah is a commandment, right? So mitzavcha is I'm commanding you. Anochi is a fancy word for ani, which means I. So these words which I command you, hayom, today, al levavcha, they should be on your heart. Vishinantam livanecha, you should teach them to your children. And in Hebrew, there are different words for teaching. So there's lilmod, which is what we normally do. That's what I'm doing now, teaching. But vishinantam is teaching by repetition, by rote memory. You should recite them over and over and over again so that they should be like second nature to you. You know, it's like learning to ride a bicycle. You practice, 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 or like reading a book. You practice reading until it's a second nature. That's what this is talking about. You should repeat these words so often that it's just part of who you are. That's the kind of teaching you're supposed to do for your kids. That you drill it into them. Vidibar tabam, and speak about them. B'shivtecha, when you're sitting, that cha ending, this is always your. Yeshevet is sitting. So in all your sitting, beveitecha, and bayit is the word here for house. So in your house, when you're sitting in your house, lechet is to walk. So uva lechet cha is in your walking, baderech, on the way. Is it helpful to translate the Hebrew, by the way? Hopefully. When you're walking on the way, uvishachbacha, and when you lie down at night, uvkumecha, and when you get up in the morning, ukshartem, and you should fasten them. Kesher is a knot or a fastening, so you should fasten it. Laot as a symbol, al yadecha, yad is a hand, so on your hand. Vahayu latotafot, another kind of symbol, bein einecha, between your eyes. Ayin is an eye. So bein einecha, between your eyes. So you're fastening them as a symbol on your hand, and they should also be another symbol between your eyes. Uchtavtem, and you should write them al mezuzot, on the doorposts, beitecha, of your bayit, of your house, ubisharecha, and on your sha'ar, which is your gates of the cities. So we took these words literally, right? And when it says that we should recite them when we lie down, v'shachbacha, and when we get up, kumecha, that's why we recite these passages at night when we lie down and in the morning when we wake up. And naturally, there was an argument, because Jews love to argue. Do we take this literally, when we lie down? So when our head hits the pillow, we should recite the Shema. And when we wake up, meaning when we first get out of bed, we should recite the Shema? Or does it just mean sometime in the evening when it's time to go to bed, and sometime in the morning when it's time to wake up? Sometime in the morning we should do the Shema, and sometime in the evening. So as you know, there were two schools, or you may know, there were two main schools of thought in the early Jewish tradition, 2,000 years ago, the early rabbinic tradition, Hillel and Shammai. And Hillel was the more liberal interpreter, the lenient opinion. Shammai was the more strict opinion. The Shammaites said it means literally when your head hits the pillow and when you first stand up and get out of bed in the morning. And Hillel said, nah, don't be such a literalist. It means sometime at night and sometime in the morning. And since Hillel had the majority in Congress, the Congress of the Jewish people was the Sanhedrin, they won. And so we say the Shema sometime in the evening and sometime in the morning. But we also like Shammai. And so there is, in fact, in many prayer books, the Shema at bedtime. So besides saying the Shema in the evening service, you can say it again to fulfill Shammai's part as you're lying down. And again, in the morning, when you first wake up in the early morning blessings, in a prayer book, it says, here's say the Shema, that fits the Shammai. And then later in the morning service, we do the Hillel version. The one that really is important is the Hillel version, but many people also do the Shammai version.
Oh, I always wondered why we did it twice at night and twice in the morning.
There you go, Hillel and Shammai. It's another typical Jewish move. When we have an argument, we try to make everybody happy. So we do both. Okay, so, and then it says you should speak about them when you sit at home and when you walk on the way. And it also says that you should put it on the doorposts of your house. And I think those are connected. So that when you are sitting at home, when you come home from the marketplace, or you come home from work, or you come home from wherever you are outside, you pass by the mezuzah on the doorpost of your house, where we have written these paragraphs on parchment and fastened them to the doorpost. And you pass by that mezuzah on your doorpost, and it reminds you of these words, so that when you're sitting in your home, you are thinking about them. And then when you leave the home to go out to work, when you go on the way, you pass by the mezuzah again, so that when you're on your way, you are reminded of these very words, right? So we fulfill all these commandments by putting the mezuzah on the doorpost of our house. And that marks a Jewish home, right? Almost every Jewish home has a case of some kind with the parchment inside that has these paragraphs written on them.
And the parchment must not be laminated, and it has to be parchment and not paper. So watch out, because they'll try to sell you something that isn't the real thing.
Yeah, so usually when you buy the case, when you buy a mezuzah case, they're fancy cases now that they make, very artistic, different kinds of designs. You're just buying the case. You're not buying the thing that's important, which is the parchment. So you have to make sure to buy the parchment, which is handwritten by a scribe on the parchment paper that's rolled up and stuck in the case and then nailed to the doorpost. The parchment is the important thing. And one of the ways you can tell it's an original is when scribes write on parchment, they don't draw lines with ink along the page. What they do is they take a sharp instrument and they score the parchment with a ruler. So they're scoring lines. And that way, when they write out the words, they're straight along a line, right? So you can tell a real parchment from a photocopy because the photocopy won't have those scoring lines in it. That's one way to tell a real one. Also, some of them look cheap and like they're written on paper or photocopied on paper. They have to be written on parchment. They cost a little money. It's about $30 minimum for a parchment. Anyway, yeah, so that's the thing about parchments. Okay. Let's go back to the thing here. All right, any I guess let's stop before I go to the next. Any questions about the first paragraph before we go to the next one? Okay. Whoops. Share screen. Okay, let's go back to share screen. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah, one thing I wanted to say, when we recite the Shema in the prayer book, you'll notice Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, v'ahavta et Elohecha, you should love the Lord your God, right? In the prayer book, you're going to see this sentence after Shema, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, right? Which means blessed is his honorable name, his kingdom is forever and ever. Where did that come from, since it's not in the text in Deuteronomy? Well, the sages said that they wanted you to realize that when you recite the Shema, you are acknowledging not only God as creator and the existent one, the source of all existence, but by extension, you're also recognizing God's kingship. That is, God is the ultimate authority in the universe. King was, an ancient term. We don't have kings anymore, but the idea of a king is that's the most powerful authority. And we want to recognize that God is the king of kings, the ultimate authority. And they wanted you to have that idea of God's authority included in the Shema, and explicitly so. And so they said, after you recite the Shema, you should quietly to yourself recite this line, which acknowledges God as the ultimate authority. Blessed is his name, Yud He Vav He, whose kingdom is forever and ever. Where did they get this phrase from? They borrowed it from the Psalms 72, 18, 19, where it says, Uvaruch Shem Kavodo Leolam. Blessed is his honorable name forever. And what they did was they added Malchuto, because again, they wanted to drive home that idea of God's kingship. So they stuck that word in there. So instead of Kavodo, it's Kavod Malchuto, right? Kavodo, Kavod Malchuto. And that's how they created that thing. You will also see it here. Whoops, where was it? Yes, here. So you might remember from Yom Kippur, if you were tuning into our Yom Kippur service in the morning, there were those 3 dramatic moments where everybody on the stage, on the bima, bowed and fell on the floor, right? And that was when we were kind of repeating or describing how the service was worshipped in the temple in Jerusalem by the high priest. And it said that when the high priest pronounced God's holy name, Yud He Vav He, that word, that name, you're only supposed to pronounce once a year in the Holy of Holies. When the high priest would pronounce that name, everybody would fall on their faces and they would say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. This is from the Mishnah, which is the 2nd century text describing how the order of the service happened when the temple stood. And here's the translation of it. The priests and the people standing in the courtyard, when they heard the name of God from the mouth of the high priest, would bend their knees, bow, and fall on their faces, and they would say, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. So those 3 times when we did that during the Yom Kippur service, we were imitating the way it was done in the temple courtyard. And again, this phrase was used in temple times when God's name was pronounced. Okay, second paragraph of the Shema is about reward and punishment. And we don't do it out loud at Beth Yeshurun, at least not in the main service. And my guess is because some of us have theological questions about whether God actually rewards and punishes in this world. Because that would indicate that people who have a terrible life are being punished by God, and people who have a great life are being rewarded by God. And we know that there are some pretty not so good people who seem to be living a pretty easy life, and you wonder if that's God rewarding them. And there's some pretty honest and decent, nice people who seem to be suffering, and it's hard to say that God is punishing them. So, I think partly because of that theological question, we do recite this, but we don't say it out loud. And so it says, if you obey God's commandments that I follow, then I will grant the rain in your land, and you will gather in the grain and wine and oil, and the grass will yield its fruit, but take care not to be lured away by other gods, because then God will be angry with you and he'll shut up the skies. There won't be any rain and you won't have produce and you will soon starve to death. And then what?
Climate change.
Yes. So that actually is what my one of my teachers taught me, right? If you can still say this, because one of the things God's commanded us to do is to take care of the planet. And if we don't take care of the planet, yeah, then the rain will be either too much or too little, which is something we're experiencing now. So yeah, you can definitely say that. Anyway, it then concludes, and the reason why I think this paragraph got connected to the first one was because it now has language that's similar to the first paragraph. Take these words to heart, bind them as a sign in your hand, let them be a symbol before on your forehead, teach them to your children, when you stay at home and when you're away, when you lie down, when you rise up, and write them on the doorposts of your house and your gates, and to the end that you and your children may endure in the land that God promised you, right? So this section of all these symbolic things that we're supposed to do is a repetition of what was in the first paragraph. And so I think that's how it got connected to that one. And then the third paragraph of the Shema is about making fringes on the corners of your garments. So this applies to 4 cornered garments, garments that, you know, in the old days, Jews used to have like a poncho sort of thing that had 4 corners with a hole in the middle. And then you put it over your head and there would be a belt that would hold it together on the sides. And then you wear some kind of pants underneath. And that was kind of how it was. So you had this 4 cornered garments and you were supposed to put fringes on the corners of the garments, right? And why? And then you're supposed to put a fringe of blue, a blue thread amongst the other fringes on the corners. And you should look at these fringes and remind yourself of God's commandments and not follow after what your heart and eyes are lustful urges, but you should remember God's commandments when you see the fringes and be holy to your God. I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, the Lord, am your God. So the third paragraph is about mostly about putting fringes on the corners of your garments. And here's why I think the 3 paragraphs got stuck together. Because they're all about mnemonic devices, reminders, right? So you're supposed to put a symbol, you're supposed to bind them as a symbol on your arm. That's the tefillin, the leather boxes. We took that literally. We write these passages on parchment, roll them up and stick them in leather boxes, and then put straps around those boxes and fasten them on our arms. And we're supposed to take them and keep them before our eyes. So we write another piece of parchment out, roll it up, stick it in another box, and fasten straps to it and put it around our head so that it's between our eyes.
Does everybody know what that looks like?
Well, yeah, we can, I mean, I didn't bring my tefillin in here with me, but yeah, you can Google tefillin and you'll see. By the way, if you look, so tefillin is translated into English as phylacteries, P-H-L-Y, phylacteries, A-C-T-E-R-I-E-S.
But phylactery is a Greek word. It means good luck.
Well, no, I don't know. Anyway, if you look up phylacteries in the dictionary, it says tefillin. So I don't know who else wears these things. But anyway, so they're little boxes. You put one box on your arm and one box in your eyes, right? So by the way, why that, right? And again, that goes back to what the paragraph was teaching us, that we're supposed to always be thinking about these words. So that's why you keep it in your forehead. So it's always on your mind. And you're with all ma'odecha, with all your strength, right? So you put it on your arm because that's where you go out and do things in the world. So with all your thoughts and with all your deeds, you're remembering that there's one God who's the source of all existence, created everything, and wants us to be good in the world, right? So it's a mnemonic device about how we're supposed to think and behave. And again, on the doorposts of our house, so that when we leave the house and when we come home again, we're reminded all the time that there's one God who wants us to behave, right? So it's all about the mnemonic devices. And then the third paragraph is another mnemonic device. It's fringes on the corners of your garments to remind yourself of God's commandments. And I think that's the reason that these 3 paragraphs got stuck together as a unit, because they're all symbolic devices that remind us of God in God's presence in the world and what God expects us to do in the world, right? And to think about that in all we do. Now, here's the thing about rituals. Rituals that we do on a regular basis are regular reminders of what we aspire to, of what we hope to do, what we want to believe and think about. They're reminders of what's important in our lives. The problem with rituals is that once we do them on a regular basis and we start doing them often all the time, we forget or tend to forget why we're doing them. And so then they don't have the they don't serve the purpose that they were supposed to. So the power of rituals is that they happen on a regular basis to remind us of what we're supposed to be doing and thinking. The problem with rituals is that once we start doing them on a regular basis, we forget about why we're doing it. So the important thing when we're doing rituals is to try and remember what the purpose of them is, to remind us in everything that we do that there's one God who created all this magnificent place, who created us with brilliance and expects us to be his agents in doing things in the world that make the world a better place, right? And so these are the mnemonic devices that they stuck together in these 3 paragraphs to remind us of that. Okay, are there any questions about any of that so far? Let me see if I left anything out here. Oh, yes, covering your eyes. Yeah, so there's a custom to cover your eyes when you recite that first line, Shema Yisrael. People ask me, why do we cover our eyes? So it says in the Talmud that Judah the prince, the one who edited the Mishnah, used to do that, and he did that to concentrate. Right, so again, the focus of this one verse is so important that there's one God who's the source of everything. We want to really think about that when we're reciting it. So closing your eyes is another way to do it. Again, it's a ritual, closing your eyes, and the purpose of it is to focus on the words. But once you do it often enough, sometimes you forget why you're closing your eyes and you're not focusing on the words. Some people also lengthen the word echad, and that's also mentioned in the Talmud, that God is one, maybe to emphasize God's oneness. Some people to emphasize that it's not acher with a root resh, right? That means God is other. But some people say echad, right? They pronounce that D to make sure you get that dalet at the end. There was in temple times an expression called pores et tashma. Pores means to separate. And so scholars now say that there was a liturgical way, a formulaic way of reciting the Shema in temple times, where the priest would say one thing and the congregation, the people listening, would respond with something. We call that antiphonal, right? That leader says one thing, congregation responds. But we're not sure exactly how it would be. Maybe the priest recited the entire verse, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and then the people would respond. We do that during the Torah service, when we take the Torah scrolls out. That may be how it was done. Other people suggest the priest would just say Shema Yisrael, and the people would respond Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Or maybe he said Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, and the people responded Adonai Echad. Somehow, we've forgotten how to do it. The temple hasn't been around for 2,000 years, but there was a formulaic way of doing that thing. Perhaps the priest said Shema Yisrael, and the people responded Baruch Shem Kavod, right? That's also possible.
Maybe they said it at the same time so they wouldn't hear the name.
No, because this definitely meant separate, that there was a response, call and response of some kind. Okay, mind and deeds, inscribe them on the doorposts, right. Okay, so it's all about mnemonic devices. Are there any other questions that you have about the Shema and its 3 paragraphs? Okay, so next week we'll talk about the blessings before and after. So in the evening, there were 2 blessings before and 2 blessings after. And in the morning, it's 2 blessings before and only 1 blessing afterwards. And they're somewhat different. The themes are the same, but the wording is different. And that's probably because, again, originally all we had was the formula at the end. And then prayer leaders were, the prayers were more flexible, so the prayer leader could kind of riff on the theme of the prayer. I don't know how to describe it, except if you're a jazz musician, you know how this works, where there's like a a sort of a melody. And then when somebody does a solo, they take that melody and they kind of go off and do their own little thing on that based on that melody and get carried away. And so they were allowed to be kind of creative about how they did that. And then in jazz, I'm not a jazz musician, but I'm told the way the guy who's doing the solo indicates to the rest of the band, I'm done with my solo, let's go back to the music, is he'd play a bar or two of the melody that they're supposed to come back to, right? So he'd indicate we're now going back to the melody by playing a couple bars of the melody, and then everybody would join him and continue. Right? And that's kind of how the Jewish prayers were done originally. There was a theme, and then the prayer leader could go off and do his own like jazz riff on the theme and do his own creative thing. But then he would indicate, now we're coming back to the theme by inserting the key word of the theme. And then everybody knew we're heading toward the end. We're going to do the seal of the blessing, the final expression. So since there were different versions floating around, one thought is that one version was chosen to do in the evening and a different version was chosen to do in the morning. And we'll see how that works out next week. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, hopefully this was helpful to look at the text, understand it a little more deeply, and give it some meaning. And next week we'll look at the blessings before and after. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, all right, take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks. Okay, bye.